And now we hand it over to Adam to give us his impression on the Tomb Raider series reboot.
I'd finally set out to make my mark. To find adventure. But instead, adventure found me.
People tend to forget just how influential the Tomb Raider franchise has been in the gaming world since it first arrived in the late 90s. It's had a rough go of it as of late, and it was starting to look like the franchise was going to end up in some corner where all the has-beens hang out. But enter Crystal Dynamics, the developer with the big dream to bring Tomb Raider back from the dead, and they didn't dream small either. They went all out, and it shows in a big way.
Lara!
Roth! Please come and get me.
Easy. We're regrouping at my location.
Tomb Raider is not only a reboot, but a prequel. It's the story of Lara Croft before she was, well, Lara Croft, and it aims to bring you along for the journey she took to get there. This theme is what the game rides on both in story and gameplay for better or worse, but does so in such a way that it's hard to fault it as a whole. As with most things, of course, it's not perfect, but it's certainly going to be a game that people will remember throughout the year despite it being an early release. The opening scenes show Lara on her first major expedition with a band of others on a ship aptly named the Endurance. They are searching the famed Dragon's Triangle, famous for being a place where ships tend to go missing. As expected, a massive storm hits and the crew winds up on an unknown island full of all sorts of bad things and bad people. From that point, you are tasked with getting off the island, which of course is way more complicated than it sounds.
And I knew what I must become.
The story that unfolds isn't anything to write home about, nor is it terrible or even bad. The best I can describe it is that it services the goal of getting Lara to become the Tomb Raider we all know her to be. I say that because you don't really get to know the other characters all that well, despite being prompted to care about them, and you don't really get to a point where you're fighting some ultimate evil in any direct fashion. Again, not great, not bad, just serviceable in the truest sense of the word. The highlight of the story's progression and what ties so well into the gameplay is the evolution of Lara. Everything is set to let you know that she really is going from an everyday woman to the butt-kicking, fearless, and very capable lady that we know. You can see it in her facial expressions, hear it in her voice, witness the change in how she takes down and treats those she hurts or kills, and it's almost done seamlessly. The amount of falling that she does, while mostly in ridiculously epic fashion, can get a bit silly and overdone, but in general you get a real appreciation of the transformation she goes through. In terms of gameplay, you'll be tackling lots of platforming, a monumental amount of bad dudes, and some minor puzzles, but it was a nearly flawless platforming and combat that really did it for me in Tomb Raider, and there's very little to pick on in this regard. I could pick on the combat being a tad easy, but that's really about it. You'll eventually cover ground in a variety of ways as you progress, and will of course add lots of upgradable weaponry to your arsenal to help with all those baddies. The bow is my personal weapon of choice, and it's definitely the way to go if you've got great aim. Not to mention, it's also incredibly satisfying to use, which you can't really say about all the weapons, specifically the shotgun of all things, which felt kind of weak. Most notable for me in terms of gameplay was the lack of feeling cheated in any way. So often platforming in games can leave you feeling cheated when things don't go as planned, but this was non-existent for me in Tomb Raider. Whether it was pulling off amazing feats of climbing, jumping, sliding, zip-lining, or all of them at the same time, I never really noticed any areas where the platforming mechanics caused an unnecessary death. That's not to say I never died in platforming. In fact, I died a number of times just trying to get from one place to another, but I never wanted to blame the game for it, and that is rare. No big deal! Fresh to death.
Something tells me the others found an easier way down.
No, really? Now, you can't talk about this game without somebody bringing up just how good it looks, or just how broken it currently is on the PC. Tomb Raider is without a doubt a real looker, and one of the best looking games I've personally ever laid eyes on. The console versions all look great, but if you have the rig to run it, with everything turned on at 1080p or higher, you're in for a real treat. Perhaps the most notable aspect, and the most broken at the moment, is the TressFX option. Hair in games is notoriously bad, in, well, just about every way imaginable, and this little option aims to take game hair into the next generation. Essentially, you are treated to what looks much more like real hair, albeit a bit odd in movement. Lara's hair suddenly gets individual strands that are affected by the environment, wind and sun, etc., and it's amazing but comes at quite a cost in performance. As of this review, Nvidia cards really struggle with the game in general, but TressFX cripples the performance. My 4GB 670 drops from over 60 frames per second down to 30 or less simply by enabling this option. AMD card users get much better performance currently, but drivers are on the way for Nvidia users soon to even the playing field. Along with FPS drops, game crashes are also an issue for PC players, and users have to play with settings to find what works for them until drivers and/or patches are released. The rest of the presentation is hit or miss. The sound effects are a hit, while the music is standard fare, along with some mediocre voice acting, aside from a few select characters such as Lara, who are done incredibly well. None of this is so bad, however, to detract from the game, but it doesn't ever add to it in any meaningful way. The difficulty in reviewing Tomb Raider is that it's covered in details that you could talk about at length forever and a day. There are a lot of little touches here that longtime gamers will appreciate in a big way, but you'll also be able to pick up on where things weren't quite nailed down as well. Luckily, the good heavily outweighs the questionable, leaving you with an experience more worthy of the Tomb Raider name than the last few games of the series combined. It has personally renewed my interest in the franchise, and I want to see more. Odds are, you will too.
I hate tombs.
Going to do it for us. Special thanks to all those who took the time to check out our PAX photo gallery on Facebook and leave some comments. And of course, as always, to Adam Perry at the Last Game Store for letting us hang out here. We'll see you next time.